Hello, friends. It's that time again. It's time for a new episode of Business Beyond the Game. I'm excited to welcome a true inspiration to the show, a former basketball star who's used his own trials and tribulations to bring awareness to substance abuse prevention in communities across the nation. We have former NBA player turned author, motivational speaker, and wellness advocate. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Chris Herren joining us. Chris, how's everything, man?
Everything's great. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. It's dope to get you on here, man. And Chris, before we get into everything, can we talk a little hoops? As a Fall River native, Fall River Mass, former Celtics player, how do you like your C's chances to win it all this season? They're currently top of the Eastern Conference standings.
Yeah, no, they're sitting in a good spot. I mean, they're not losing for sure, and they're defending their home unbelievably well. So, I think it's just a collection of young talent that has been cultivated over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And the long-term plan of Brad Stevens, at the end of the day, looks like a genius.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. You still watch a good amount? I know you got family, other obligations, or how does that work on the schedule?
For me, I'm kind of more of a fan of tennis than I am of basketball. I'm a bigger fan of boxing than I am. It's those individual sports that intrigue me. When people don't have a sub. When people can't raise their hand and say, "Coach, pull me out." That's a whole nother level of competition that I'm intrigued by, and those are sports that I pay pretty close attention to.
No, I love that. You can't blame it on a teammate or anyone else, right?
Yeah, totally.
I love that. Chris, Celtics guard Jaylen Brown, he's among other high-profile athletes who've been vocal about the importance of mental health. What do you just think about athletes prioritizing this more and sort of shifting the narrative around the wellness conversation? A different time than when you were hooping.
Sure. No, I think there's been, I think the gymnast, right, bowing out of the Olympics.
Yeah, Simone
is probably one of the most brave, probably the bravest, most courageous thing anyone could have done in this space. And I think that allowed people to kind of sit back and just say, like, maybe we need to look a little deeper into this. I think athletes, have become responsible and they're committed to their platform. And anybody talking about substance use or mental health for me is a beautiful thing. I think, as a young athlete, I think we spend so much time worrying about results and what and outcomes, right? That we kind of forget about the present and we lose sight of some of the trials and tribulations that athletes go through. There's a lot of kids out there, very talented, that come underprivileged, with significant trauma attached to them, and it's not dealt with. So for me, I would love not only the narrative to change, but the commitment to healing young athletes and giving them a platform and giving them an opportunity to kind of take a look in and start the process of letting go.
Yeah, no, definitely. Why do you think it took so long to get here? I mean, I know a lot of sports, there's a lot of machismo, right? I know, like, I'm fine, and you just put your head down and you work, and it's what do you think it took so long?
I mean, listen, the money has changed, right? The investments have changed, right? If you got someone who, you're going to pay $300 million to, you're gonna find a way to help their mental health, right? I mean, you just invested $300 million in that player. Now the landscape of college has changed with NILs and kids making money. That all of a sudden, you're going to kind of double down on keeping them healthy and safe and well. But I also believe, too, to the credit of many people, I believe that there's been a lot of work done around the stigma. And I think, over the last couple of decades, people have worked really hard to not only change the stigma, but to change the face of mental health and addiction. And I think athletes have done a tremendous, phenomenal job at doing it.
Yeah, and yourself, Chris, you founded three organizations that continue to provide help for people navigating life challenges, and one of those is the Herren Project, which you launched after Unguarded came out, the 30 for 30 about your life story about more than 10 years ago. How much do you think that film alone not impacted your life, but ultimately many others as a result of its success?
I occasionally text Jonathan Hawk, the director, right? Jonathan Hawk from afar has watched my whole world change because of his vision with Unguarded. And I was short sighted. I didn't know the impact. Here we are 12 years after, and it's still being shown in schools. It's still being shown in treatment centers and hospitals. So it's something that I'm incredibly proud of, right? But I'd be lying if I told you that I saw the legs, and how long this would last. But it wasn't easy, right? Not many people were talking about heroin addiction over a decade ago. Not many people, the word fentanyl and opiates were not headlines. It was still buried in the back pages and not even on a page. So to come out not only as a former athlete, but a father, a husband, a son, and disclose the trials and tribulations that I went through in my addiction, it wasn't easy, but it was worth it.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I must say, congrats, Chris. You recently celebrated 15 years of sobriety. What advice do you give athletes who are using prescription, painkillers to recover from injury? It seems helpful, but also potentially a health risk, as you know.
The problem with painkillers is some people like them, some people don't, right? And really, that's, if you look at it as simple as that, right? Like when I was in 8th grade, I had a minor knee surgery, a scope, and I remember coming home from that surgery and my mom giving me the medication, and I never felt better. I was like, gosh, if this is what surgery is, put me back in surgery tomorrow. Like I never felt better. And then you have people that fall, like my wife, who has surgery and she gets sick from it. She doesn't want it. She rejects the feeling that opiates give her. So again, I think there's a lot of work that has been done as far as prescribing safely and responsibly. But I also think it's on the athlete's part, their family, their coaches, to look at the lineage, the family history, and everything that comes along with it on whether or not they should be on a painkiller protocol.
No, definitely, for sure. Kind of getting the whole view, right? Definitely, no doubt. And as you know, Chris, because pro athletes face a significant amount of pressure in and out of their respective sports. Some do turn to drugs to cope. Like, what responsibility do you think that teams and leagues have to make sure their players are mentally well and not abusing drugs, in your opinion?
Again, I think we've done a phenomenal job at changing the narrative, right? I think people are paying attention.
Yeah.
People are paying attention. And the truth is, everybody's an investment, and we have a responsibility to protect that investment. So when an athlete, when a coach, when someone's struggling with drugs or alcohol with their mental health, we have to take action, right? We have to act, and we have to get them the help that they deserve. I see it at my center every day. I see former coaches, current coaches, athletes, former athletes who are coming in here, that are struggling with alcoholism or addiction. And, I think we all can reflect back and say, like, I wish I knew a little more. I wish I knew a little more when I was growing up. And I think that's where we failed, right? I think when you talk about mental health and you talk about addiction, I think we put so much emphasis on the worst day and we forget the first day. We show people what drugs are going to do to you rather than why you're beginning doing them. And I think that if we can start understanding the root, the beginning, then we have a chance at making a difference.
Love that, for sure. And obviously, you've certainly put in the work for more than a decade with your organizations, definitely. And as we wind down here, Chris, what lesson would you just say you've learned from your own recovery journey that translates well, right, into the world of business, you would say? I'm sure being resilient is definitely a part of that.
Yeah, I think, listen, in anything, right? I think the monotony, one of the greatest kind of gifts I was given is settling into the monotony, right? Whether it was going outside to shoot 1,000 jump shots or going to the same meeting every day, which has kept me sober 15 years. It's finding that rhythm, finding that pace, settling into the monotony of doing things habitually over and over and over again. And I sit here with you today. I'm 15 years sober, and it's something that I'm extremely proud of. Right, it's the greatest accomplishment of my life. I played a lot of basketball. I played in a lot of arenas. I wore a lot of different uniforms. But the fact of the matter is for 15 years, I've been me 24/7, and nobody can take that away from me. Nobody can take that from myself or my family. And listen, and that's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to be you 24/7. And so anybody who does it or attempts to do it, to me, is unbelievably courageous, and it's a miracle.
Wow. Wow, man. That's so good. Well, there you heard it, folks, from the man himself, Chris Herren. Chris, you're an inspiration, man. Thank you for
Thanks,
coming on the
brother. I
show.
appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on.